Hey everybody, this is John for MTG Nexus with our first Phoenix video in a while. We're going to be doing these videos on Fridays at 10 a.m. every Friday, either Izzet or Mono Red variants of some kind. This week we're going to be focusing on Izzet, as this was a list similar to what I used to prepare for the ICG Store Invitational Qualifier this past weekend. I ended up switching up to a slightly different list by Tariq Partel, but this was a list very similar to what Gerry T used to do well in Washington State event. The only difference is his list was running 3 Ravenous Traps. I was not able to get a hold of Ravenous Traps, so I switched it out for 2 Tormod's Crypts and put another Anger of the Gods in the sideboard. Was the list that I ended up testing in the second round of matches. In the first round of matches, the list is basically what you see before you, except there is 3 Ravenous Traps and 1 less Anger of the Gods. The big takeaway from this list is the power of Aria of Flame. Throughout the videos, in the matches, I did not know how to properly sideboard with a card, as I was quite frankly testing it for the first time myself and had not seen Tariq Partel's write up on the list about when to bring in the card, leave it out, etc. The deck felt very powerful. I knew I was not playing it completely optimally, so as I go through and do the replays, I'll do my best to explain my line of thinking with some of the various lines I took, keeping in mind that this was the first time I'd piloted Izzet Phoenix in probably a couple of months. It's a deck that I have recently picked up all the pieces for on paper. Wanted to keep it a bit of a surprise, because the people at the IQ usually have me locked in on burn, so sometimes people will add like extra timely reinforcements or something to their sideboards. So it was nice to have a nice little change of pace. Hence why I kept it on the low what deck I had, but now that the cat's kind of out of the bag, I will be doing more Phoenix content, both Mono Red and Izzet. With that, hit the intro, and we'll get into the first set of videos, first set of matches with Gerry T's original list with Ravenous Traps in the sideboard. So here we are back with match number 1, game number 1. This hand's a little weird. We have no immediate threat. You have a Surgical Extraction, which can either be amazing or dead, depending on the matchup. Lightning Bolt, Finale of Promise, so pitching spells to an early Faithless Looting, or if we happen to draw an extra land. I think this hand is perfectly justifiable, keepable in the dark, not knowing what our opponent's on. I believe I end up keeping this hand. Our opponent goes turn 1, nothing. I choose not to cast Faithless Looting, as I don't know what I'm looking for quite yet. Fetch for Steam Vents here. So, might have been correct to Thought Scour here, looking for some action, but I'm still not entirely sure what our opponent's up to quite right now. They just continue ramping. Play Duskwatch Recruiter, so I get to do the double whammy of bolt that, Thought Scour myself, hit a bunch of Thought Scours, so not a whole lot going on in our graveyard right now. Hit another Finale of Promise, so I cast a Faithless Looting here, looking for some action. End up finding a whole bunch of nonsense, end up pitching an extra land, and I guess we just pitch 2 extra lands here. And then cast another Faithless Looting, just hitting a bunch of stuff, pitch the other Faithless Looting on another land. It's possible, given the contents of our hand, I was supposed to work on filling up my graveyard more, or being a little bit more selective with my Faithless Lootings. I ended up casting Surgical Extraction on Duskwatch Recruiter, mainly because I wanted to know what the heck was going on with our opponent. They had a weird deck going on here. They had Arbor Elves and Utopia Sprawls, Land of War Tribe. They had a Primal Command Lock here with... did they have the lock? No, I guess this is just a way to fetch out the combo. Get infinite mana, Walking Ballista to Death, or get Karn the Great Creator, and kind of lock us out that way. And they have Karn the Great Creator in hand, as long as an Eternal Witness. So I'm only seeing 1 actual Eternal Witness here, so the Primal Command Lock would be a little bit more difficult for them to do the thing with. Go ahead and play Karn here. They grab Pithing Needle, naming Jace, because, yeah. Go ahead and do Finale of Promise here. It's possible I was supposed to cast, Serum Visions before doing Finale of Promise, but Faithless Looting. I pitched the Thing in the Ice, which might have ended up being incorrect. You know, they go and get a Batter Skull, and then so within our deck, cast a Serum Visions, see 2 cards on top, cast a Finale of Promise, targeting Thought Scour and Faithless Looting. Pretty much figured at that point I was on the Phoenix plan. Finally see a Phoenix, pitch that, and another Faithless Looting, get the bird back. In hindsight, I think the biggest thing I should have done here was to keep the Thing in the Ice, but not sure what our opponent's courting here for something. Oh, just playing Walking Ballista. We play Aria Flame, start beating down. It's possible I was supposed to use the bolts on the Germ token here. I think at this point I still mistakenly thought Aria could target creatures, and obviously it can't. So our opponent chords for Scavenging Ooze, get Phoenix back, put them to 9, put them to 3. So the takeaway from this game is, even despite floundering and not, really picking a direction, if I'd been a little bit more judicious with how I'd use my mana and selecting the correct cards here, Aria of Flame could have finished them off, and wasn't even particularly close. We were just lethal. Next turn they could just chomp on a creature out of their graveyard. So, 3, 7, even they just have lethal on board. So maybe it was correct to hold back the Phoenix here. But, they would be at 6. Yeah, actually it was probably correct to hold back the Phoenix here. Holding back the Phoenix here, we would have probably won this game. Flashback Phoenix. We hit any kind of spells, they're probably just dead in the next turn cycle or two. But with the knowledge of Surgical Extraction, we're able to kind of infer they're like a devoted Druid combo nonsense kind of thing. So, which was interesting, but not particularly. It's a Vizier deck that's kind of just smashing a Karn the Great Creator thing into the deck. So sideboarding, boarded out the Surgical Extractions and a Sleight of Hand. Boarded in Force of Negations and Anger of the Gods, I believe, ended up being the cards. So, 1 Anger of the Gods, and what was the other card we boarded in here? Probably should have boarded in Magmatic Sinkhole. So it was Force. Go back to. So it's Anger of the Gods, 2 Force of Negations, and a Partridge and a Pear Tree. Guess we'll look here in a minute. This hand's pretty promising, especially if we can find a Faithless Looting. We have a Lava Dart and a Bolt to interact with our opponent's thing. So I'm just going to go ahead and lead off here. We don't have a Mana Dork on one. We draw a Force of Negation. They play a Druid. We go ahead and Bolt the Druid. Draw a Thing in the Ice, so that kind of gives us a definitive plan as to where we're going here. They get back the Devoted Druid. Go ahead and cast Sleight of Hand here. See, blue card plus Serum Visions. We cast Serum Visions here. Looking for Faithless Looting to really kind of close us out. See another Thing in the Ice and the Manamorphose. Keep the Manamorphose on top. We have a card to pitch to Force of Negation should they have something. Just kind of a free block here. Opponent jams Walking Ballista. Go ahead and do this to flip thing. They tried killing, so opponent tried killing our Awoken Horror with their Walking Ballista trick here. In response to the second activation, went ahead, used Lava Dart, flashed it back by doing Steam Vents, so we killed Eternal Witness so they wouldn't get that back, flashed it back, flipped the Awoken Horror, and now we have a clock in our hand. Clock on the field, and we also have protection for it in hand, so no reason really to take an action right now. Is some consideration here to having used the Manamorphose during our turn, but for right now, should have waited till my turn to do that most likely, but ends up working out okay because we draw Finale of Promise. And then casting Lightning Bolt and Sleight of Hand here. Bolt to kill the Druid. See another Sleight of Hand. Continue to put our opponent under the Abyss. Just basically don't want to get cheesed out here. Force of Negation, I'm not quite sure what they were planning on going to go get, but I didn't really want to find out. So, and then hard casting Phoenix for the win there. So, alright. Then on to game 3. So, once again, this was a really weird mashup deck, like some type of Devoted Druid combo-ish kind of thing. Still not quite sure what the last card we boarded in was. Definitely boarded in out the 3 Surgicals and the Sleight of Hand. What was the 4th card? This hand's an obvious mulligan here. This hand's definitely keeping Finale of Promise there. One has the Utopia Sprawl. Like, we have a Lava Dart to interact with their normal mana dorks. Thought Scour ourselves there. At this point, I go for the Manamorphose chain, trying to start finding stuff. Trying to find like a Phoenix or something. Not sure why the heck I cast Lava Dart there. Just use my mana, I guess. There's a thing in the ice. Fortunately, we have our shields down for a turn. They go Court of Calling for a Scavenging Ooze. They go Karn the Great Creator, so shields are down. They have an Ensnaring Bridge floating around. They try to eat the Lava Spike, or Lava Dart. Notably, their shields are down this turn, so use Finale of Promise here to have a good chance to flip our thing in the ice. Grab Thought Scour and Sleight of Hand. So get some counters on our thing. Mainly looking for a blue card to lock out Ensnaring Bridge here. Grab the Serum Visions, I believe. Kill Karn the Great Creator. Go ahead and Force of Negation their bridge. Nice part being is that can't come back now. Go ahead and do the thing. See an Aria Flame, a little late for that to the party, but at this point we're pretty much on the Awoken Horror plan. They fetched, we bolt in response, so they get no lands. They use Dryad Arbor as a chump blocker. They try to go grab Transmogrifying one. We're digging for a land here. So end up casting Finale for Lightning Bolt, and we end up way lethaling our opponent. So despite our opponent's rather unique build and a lot of fumbling around trying to learn the differences with the sequencing and stuff of this build, we ended up coming away with a win here in match number 1. Just showing the power of this deck. Even when you're fumbling around and you're not quite sure what you're looking for, a lot of times you're going to find it, even if you don't know it. So definitely a deck that as you play it more and more, it certainly rewards knowing the lines, knowing what you know, when to hold your spells, when to cast your spells. Like there was a lot of times, like game number 2, I should have grabbed a thing in the ice. There was a situation where I, you know, threw out one of the lava darts and I shouldn't have. But anywho, let's go ahead and look at the list and see what other card I boarded in. Oh, I must have boarded in the 3rd copy of Aria Flame, just to have an out in case they were brought in some graveyard hate in addition to the scavenging oozes. So that must have been the final card that I boarded in. Makes sense. Now that I'm used to having that copy in the main deck, it wasn't a card that I was thinking of coming in. But yeah, definitely brought in one, because that version only had 1 Anger of the Gods, so I brought in the 1 Anger of the Gods, 2 Force of Negations, because I didn't want to get locked out by something like a Mycosynth the Last or whatnot. And also brought in the 3rd copy of Aria Flames, which makes some sense, I guess. Their deck isn't particularly fast as long as you can blow up the Devoted Druid combo. And this card, for a card that was much maligned coming out of Modern Horizons, this card was really, really good for the Izzet Phoenix lists. Though you do have to be mindful of the amount of blue spells in your deck when you're boarding this in. Because I had some problems, I believe, in a Tron matchup, not having enough blue cards in my deck to find, and I think I'd missed on like 4 or 5 looks at it. So something to keep in mind is make sure you're boarding in enough blue cards, or not boarding out blue cards whenever you're boarding in Force Implication. Anyways, this has been John for MTG Nexus with League 1, match number 1 replay. Hey everybody, we're back for match number 2 in this previously played league with Gerry Phoenix's original list with Arclight Phoenix. With Aria Flame, this hand's pretty good, especially if your opponent can't interact with Thing in the Ice. This hand is a pretty quick Thing in the Ice, backed up by the potential of, if you find a Faithless Looting, a Phoenix or multiple Phoenixes. So, just play, no sense in playing anything. They take Thought Scour here, which I find interesting. Generally means I think the Thing in the Ice isn't going to live here, but they didn't really want to give us the chance to get these Arclights rolling, because it looks like rock at this point, but from the Scalding Tarn I should have known, or from guess at this point they haven't shown us enough to conclude that it's Jund, but this Blood Crypt will indicate that it's Jund. They go Liliana, the Last Hope. We cast Sleight of Hand, find a Faithless Looting, cast that, put some Arclights into the bin, cast a Lightning Bolt. Don't particularly care about Liliana, the Last Hope here. Go to combat. They have Kolaghan's Command. We discard a Thing in the Ice, play another Thing in the Ice, pass turn. They play Liliana, force us to sacrifice, and then we just play a bunch of spells and bring our stuff back. So, Aria Flame wouldn't have been relevant here, but the Arclight Phoenix plan, if they were able to shut down with a Scavenging Ooze or something, Aria Flame would have been quite good in this particular instance. That's generally the best acknowledged way to beat green-black X decks is quick Phoenixes, and we had both the threat of flipping Thing in the Ice and copies of Arclight Phoenix. So, sideboarding plan, this is where Aria Flame really kind of shines, is against decks that have interaction for our graveyards. So, once again, this is in the early stages of me learning the Aria Flame build. Didn't bring in the 3rd copy of Aria Flame. Cut a Lava Dart, or cut the Lava Darts, cut the Aria Flame, cut the Surgical Extractions, brought in copies of anything that was grindy, so Spell Pierces, Narsets, anything, the 2nd copy of Magmatic Explosion, anything that interacted with their creatures in a positive way, their planeswalkers, or was kind of a grindy element. So they lead on Leyline of the Void, so our keep looks really, really bad in the face of these two cards, especially with Leyline of the Void in play. Opponent does not have a discard spell, so we do not obviously take a Faithless Looting. We're looking for lands at this point, kind of leaning on Narset here to kind of keep us in the game. We miss on the first Narset, they bolted away. Find a Manamorphose. Kind of digging for lands at this point to be able to cast our spells. Just want to find threats. Opponent plays a Tarmogoyf. We play a Thing in the Ice, bolt their Goyf. Threaten a flip thing, get another Arclight Phoenix. Because we're kind of on the cast our threats and hope they're good enough plan. Against a deck like Jun, that's a little bit dubious. Bolt their dude. They play a Bloodbraid Elf, they hit an Inquisition, take an irrelevant card. Start to pressure us here, we play another Arclight Phoenix. Magmatic Sinkhole looks really bad in response to that. So they're killing this, getting back a Goyf. Might have been a premature concession here on my part, but this is 3 power, putting us to 10. Tarmogoyf would be a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, which they're going to be able to cast this turn. So, lots of problems. Our opponent shuts down most of our opening hand because we had multiple Finalia promises. And go to game 3. I want to open the chat on this one because our opponent massively salted off in this game, and it's kind of funny because let's go over sideboarding. I boarded out the Finalia promises in the face of Leyline of the Void. Boarded out one of the Magmatic Sinkholes. Brought back, I think I brought in the Force of Negations just to be able to protect our threats, even though obviously you know, Force of Negation is not good in a deck against a deck with a bunch of discard spells and stuff. I also brought in the 3rd copy of Aria Flame. Once again, this is still early in the Aria Flame process. Opponent mulliganning really aggressively for Leyline of the Void, and it's not even relevant in this game. Like, not even remotely close. Play out Thing in the Ice. So our opponent makes a very curious decision here. So they thought sees us, see this hand. Faithless Looting, obviously not really a relevant card. 2 card types in the graveyard. So thought season that. So their Goyfs would be a 2/3. They take Lightning Bolt. So opponent leaves us with Lightning Bolt. Draw, top those. Plays the Tarmogoyf, sure. Whole reason they did the Tarmogoyf thing. We go Manamorphose. Kind of hoping to hit a land here. Faithless Looting. Once again, doing this because we really want to hit a land drop. Get lucky, we hit a land drop, get rid of the Magmatic Insight. Bolt them, hit them for down to 5 here. Opponent plays their Goyf. We attack, put them in the Abyss here. Play another thing. And at this point our opponent was salting off about keep drawing flawlessly, have fun, looting finally eats a ban, you can look for the next deck someone better than you thinks up. So, bravo to Baron von der Ham for salting off when, you know, even if you had Terminate in hand, you couldn't have killed our Awoken Horror. And we're a cantrip deck. We're going to find what we're looking for, you know. It's one of the keys of the Arclight Phoenix decks, is you're able to find what you're looking for. You have a billion cantrips. Sideboard with Aria Flame now shores up most of the deck's weaknesses. You have game against decks like Tron. Burn continues to be a fairly poor matchup, in my experience, from both sides of it, but, you know, just the salt is real. You know, people do this, they get really serious about it. I've personally tilted off at points, so I can appreciate our opponent, but you know, at the same time, it's a game. You know, you had the opportunity to take a spell pierce if you happen to have a removal spell. I mean, if you were counting on that Goif against a thing in the ice, you know, you're really not supposed to protect your threats from the Jun's side. You're supposed to prevent your opponent from doing their thing. You know we have a thing in the ice, so leaving me with a spell pierce outside of Abrupt Decay can answer most of your answers, whether it's Liliana, whether it's Terminate, whether it's Maelstrom Pulse, not drawing a third land. You know I've got the spell pierce. It turns into the Abyss really quickly. It invalidates your Tarmogoyf. I don't think taking the Bolt was the correct thing. And the previous game, like, oh, we're drawing great. Well, you had a Leyline in the Void, and you saw it blanked like 3 cards in my hand. But, you know, we're not going to think that. We're just going to talk about how our opponent drew perfectly. Anywho, that's it for match number 2. We'll be back in a bit here with match number 3. Hey everybody, we're back with Izzet Phoenix, getting ready for match number 3 here. This one, this hand's a little bit on the borderline. One hand, sleight of hand, Metamorphose, double surgical extraction. I believe I end up, or triple surgical extraction. A hand only against a graveyard deck you could love. I think I end up pitching this one because it's just too all over the place. This one's fine. So this hand, got Thought Scour, Metamorphose, so we can be either on the Thing in the Ice plan or the Izzet Phoenix plan. I think I end up keeping the third land on top. When it goes Hallowed Fountain, go. Crack here, so it really didn't matter what we end up keeping. Thought Scour. See a Thing in the Ice, play out Thing, even though it really doesn't have a chance to do a whole lot in this kind of a thing. Looking Metamorphose here. Our opponent takes the opportunity to Mana Leak us. Yep. So effectively Time Walk. They have the Cryptic Command thing going. Play Metamorphose, do the thing. Play that. Keep an Izzet Phoenix on top. Play Faithless Looting. Flip the Piggy. They Force of Negation it. Hold their face. Try to hit them. They have the answers to everything. So play out a Thing in the Ice. Go Metamorphose. They play Logic Knot. Sure. Once again, kind of time walking us here. Supreme Verdict. Keep that card on top. Do this. Do Thought Scour and Serum Visions. Very powerful combination, but only when you have a bunch of Phoenixes roaming around. Jace. Do this. Get the Lava Dart. Attack with Phoenix. Go Lava Dart. Flush it back. Kill their Jace. Serum Visions. Keeping burn spells on top, because that's kind of like our one chance to try to get into this game. Narset. Mildly annoying card, but take care of it with Magmatic Explosion. They finally find a path. We Boulder and Dude, try to keep our threats around. Hold on to Faithless Looting here. It's possible. No, because we would have had to. It's possible I was supposed to flashback looting, and Bolt here just to get a clock rolling. But I wanted to hold on for another card, so playing this 5th land out may have been incorrect here. Go into fetch. Play out Thing in the Ice. Probably not correct to play that, because it really doesn't have much of a chance to do much here. Opponent Vendilion clicks us. Bolt it. Take Aria Flame, we Thought Scour ourselves. Cast E. Surgical Extraction, targeting their Path to Exiles. So, do this. Try to get a combat, we get Surgical. A card that's becoming more and more regular in the main deck, so our opponent has like a couple of draws here to find the thing. They go Snapcaster, Supreme Verdict. We'd already removed all our Path to Exiles, so now we're basically on empty. Do the thing. Opponent starts to beat us down. Keep the Finale of Promise, try to do the thing to kill them. And then we end up flashing back Bolt and Sleight of Hand. I'm looking for, at this point I have another copy of Lava Dart, but we knew they had the Surgical Extraction, or the Spell Pierce from when we surgically extracted them, but we really couldn't play around it anyway. So flashback Faithless Looting, and then concede the game. On to game number 2. Spoiler alert, we lost him. Blue-white control. This point in time, I hadn't seen Tariq Patel's sideboarding guide, so I actually boarded out Magmatic Sinkholes. I boarded out the Surgical Extractions and the Sleight of Hand. Brought in the third copy of Aria Flame in our sideboard. Also brought in the 2 Spell Pierces and the 2 Force of Negations. So, and boarded out Lava Dart, which may or may not be correct. I mean, it did help pressure their Planeswalkers there, but definitely leaving in Magmatic Sinkhole is incorrect. I have since learned that when sideboarding in this matchup, you actually want to board out all the things in the ices. I also boarded in our Narsets, so boarded out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 cards, brought in 8 cards. Feels about right, but we did have the wrong cards, so this hand's pretty reasonable, especially if we find an early Aria Flame or something. Hopefully our opponent doesn't have some style of graveyard interaction. Keeping cards on top there, doing that. Setting up for Narset. Unfortunately, Narset walks right into one of their main deck Spell Pierces. Card that I still don't entirely agree with the with how they're fighting it, but try to hit them with a Phoenix here. We have Celestial Purge. Do I just concede at this point? I don't think so. Some reason having an issues with the replay here. I don't know, maybe I conceded at this point, but just felt like we were kind of behind. So, wish I could share the rest of the match. Maybe we'll try reloading the replay here, see if we can do it without it freezing up. These replays sometimes give issues on Moto. So, do the thing. It's possible I conceded there at that point, because it would have been hard to fight through that particular chain of cards. Obviously, they're going to Spell Pierce this. Does the thing, they play Narset, which we knew about. Go ahead and do a Sleight of Hand, grab a Faithless Looting. It's possible I should have saved the Bolt for their turn to pair with Manamorphose, but chances are good that if we do that, then they get to apparently I conceded there. I guess, I mean, I could have Finale of Promised the following turn if they didn't have a counterspell, hit Bolt and Sleight of Hand, and been back into the game. So I think this was maybe a premature concession, frustration with it being a difficult matchup, and I didn't know. Reading Tariq Patel's post about how to play this kind of a matchup, So I guess the matchup did end there, although it's likely. They had 5 cards in hand. We had a lot of value here, but it feels like we were in a bad position. Sideboarding, you want to leave in the mag sinkholes. You want to board out the things in the ices instead. They got tremendously, well, not really lucky, but they drew one of their like 8 or 10 outs left in their deck to deal with Thing in the Ice game 1. We had a snowball's chance there to kind of kill them if they didn't have a draw step. Well, they would have had 2 draw steps because they would have had a chump block with Colonnade, and then, then the next following turn would have been lethal. So they had a lot of draws, a lot of redraws at a Snapcaster Mage for Supreme Verdict there, which was like their primary out for dealing with Thing in the Ice once we had Surgical them off of Path to Exile, and then this game, obviously, we get hit by the Celestial Purge, which, unsurprisingly, they have answers to red creatures in their deck. So, anyways, we'll be back in a bit with match number 4. And I do apologize for the delay on the final recordings and the release of the video. It's been a hectic week. Had a heck of a day at work on Friday. So, anywho, this has been John for MTG Nexus. We'll be back in a bit with match number 4. Alright, we're back for match number 4. Hopefully the sound of the cooling unit in the background won't be too loud. It's gotten unbearably hot here in Northeast Ohio at the end of June, so, Back for match number 4. This hand, overall, pretty solid. Have a couple cantrips, have some Metamorphosis for redraws, and if we happen to find one of our Aria, Flame, or Thing in the Ice, or even Faithless Looting to get some Phoenixes in the graveyard, this is one of the more important cards in the deck. Beyond that, obviously we don't have any particular threat in our hand yet, but Finale of Promise gives us a lot of looks at cards. So, keeping our opponent's mulliganing pretty aggressively here. They lead on Blood Crypt into Carrion Feeder, so we obviously know we're up against Hogaak. Go ahead and do the Bolt thing. Don't want that to be in play. Let's let Neonate. Discard a Vengevine. We go Morphos, trying to fire off some things here. Probably go red. Oh, I guess we went red, which is kind of weird. Cantrip, find a Surgical Extraction. I guess we take Phoenix, though, which was probably incorrect. In hindsight, against a Hogaak deck, we have both a Phoenix and a Surgical Extraction. Altered Dementia, a little bit scary. This turn's going to be glorious if we can find a... Ooh, lots of Phoenixes. Surgical Extraction, take their Bridgevines, and the opponent scoops it up. So, interesting thing about the Hogaak deck, what version they're on in particular. This version is the White Splash for Whispermare, it looks like. So I am currently playing a league with Bridgvine and finding just about every way you can lose with the deck, so look forward to a video from that. Not going to be doing a ton of new content or different content from Burn and Phoenix, but I did want to play the Bridgvine deck for posterity's sake before hopefully it gets the ban hammer this coming ban. Maybe Wizards will be nuts and allow their Mythic Championship to be ruined by that menace, but it is a deck that I previously thought was fine. The more I've played against it, the obviously worse it feels to play against. Boarded out the Lava Darts, boarded out a Sinkhole again, boarded out a Thought Scour. I boarded in Force of Negations and an Anger of the Gods and Ravenous Traps. This particular version was running 3 Ravenous Traps. This was Gerry T's original list that he did well at Washington State's with. So, kind of what we're going on. Probably should have boarded out some more bolts too, but for now, that's kind of what we're rolling with. Opening hand, pretty reasonable. Got a couple cantrips, got a Force of Negation, so they won't be able to do the combo portion of things. They can still obviously get a fast fast Hogaak, but looks like they're just setting up for a real quick Bloodghast and Vengevine hand. Our hand is not particularly great. The Phoenixes at least give us some outs to, one of their slower bridge-based starts, but then they just get to go, crazy this turn. I try to Phoenix some stuff here, and we're just dead next turn. So, without the ability to hit like a surgical extraction or something there, we're just dead on board as is, because that's 8, 12, any number of power they dumped into play on turn 2. Kind of the insane power of this deck. This is why arguably this deck needs ban, because we're dead on turn 3 pretty much. No biggie. Game number 3. Got to see what Bridgvine can do on its truly busted draws. See what this game 3 looks like. Our hand, pretty reasonable. We have a couple pieces of graveyard interaction, a couple Phoenixes to pitch with. Faithless Looting. I go ahead and cast Looting here. We already know what we're going to pitch, so opponent goes Thoughtseize and takes our Faithless Looting, leaving us with the 2 graveyard interaction spells, which I found interesting. Now we have 3 graveyard hate spells. Use the surgical extraction to take the guys. They brought in 3 Thoughtseizes. It looks like they brought in Thoughtseizes, and that's about it. Shaved on Bloodghasts, Vengevines. So, always interesting to see how. It's one of the nice things about dealing with decks when you're playing surgical extraction is you get some idea of what their game plan is against you. In this Hogaak deck does do a lot of damage to itself. I've noticed that even in my own games, that the land base deals a lot of damage to itself. Having to play that 3rd splash color, either white or green, to have answers to various graveyard hate, and I think they submit to this Ravenous Trap here. So overall, pretty brutal win over Hogaak, although you did get to see from game number 2 that they're still able to power out ridiculous starts. So anyways, this has been match number 4. Hopefully the cooling fan in the background isn't too hot, so it's kind of bearable up here. This has been John for MTG Nexus. Don't forget to check out our Twitter page. Link is down below. So we're back for the 5th and final match of this Izzet Phoenix League with Gerry T's original list. This hand is interesting. Couple copies of Thing in the Ice, a Surgical Extraction, a Thought Scour to try to find the red source. Obviously, if this was one of the red lands, this hand would be a very quick snap keep. I think the fact we have the 2 basic islands does give you pause, but I still think I end up keeping this hand. And immediately get punished by seeing Bloodghast and Gravecrawler. Bridgvine, round 2, fight. So, at this point, I choose to surgical the Bloodghasts. Maybe that's incorrect, especially as my opponent now still gets a boatload of power in play with the Vengevine. Play a Thing in the Ice. They do the thing. They Dark Blast their own dude. Get another Bridgvine back. Do the Hogaak thing. Still get to swing for 8. So we need to hit a red source here. We fail to hit a red source. Do this. And if we had hit another surgical extraction there, maybe we'd still be in this game. We could knock all this crap back to their hand. But pretty quick and brutal. That's Hogaak in a nutshell. Turn 3 has 2, 3, 7, 11, 19 power in play, and it's already hit us for a boatload of damage. So, on to game 2. Much like last time, sideboarded in the Ravenous Traps, the 1 Anger of the Gods, and the Force of Negations because of Alter Dementia is a card. I still ended up bringing in. But just the nut draws that Hogaak is capable of. I think this ends up being a mulligan. No, I keep it. Don't know what I saw in this hand. Guess because I had some redraws. Oh, it does the thing. We do the Manamorphose thing. We hit a thing in the ice. Not great that we've burned so many resources already, but our opponent has one of their slower draws. So we choose to Surgical Bridge from Below, which is one of their key cards. They show us the fact that they have Lightning Axe, which is relevant. Gravecrawler. Should have blocked there anyway, I think. Now we get to go Finalia Promise for Serum Visions and Surgical Extraction, which is fine. Force of Negation's not terrible. We take away their Faithless Lootings here. Their last card in hand is Insolent Neonate. So their hand obviously isn't quite as good, but we've got a flip thing and a lot of pressure. They vomit their board back out. We find an Izzet Phoenix. Continue to pressure them. We get to go block sack, put a Gravecrawler in the bin. They get to alter us. Just hard cast. Could have hard cast Phoenixes there, got a little bit lucky to hit a land. Start pressuring them in the air, leave our buddy back Awoken Horror, block their potentially biggest dude. We go to 4, they don't really have a lot of reach in their deck. So they could have gotten Vengevine back there, which was perhaps a mistake on their part. And then I guess they figured that they were safe, but we were able to run them down with Phoenixes. So Phoenix's evasion, quite relevant in that game too. Force of Negation, something that came up again in the next league I played was the issue of Force of Negation and having enough blue cards. Maybe you're supposed to always cut red cards. This hand had Anger of the Gods, we have Thing in the Ice. Not understanding the nature of the matchup, I think I end up keeping this hand. Nope, I'm a mulligan. Okay. I was gonna say that hand was very touch and go as to what it was good at. Do the thing. Looking for graveyard hate, obviously. They just continue to churn through their deck, because this is what their deck does. Play Thing in the Ice, pass the turn. Go ahead and counter that with our Force of Negation. Okay, we take a bunch of damage here. They get their blood gas back. I should have probably played Anger of the Gods there, although all it would have succeeded in doing is getting their Carrion Feeder up to a 4/4. Lightning Axe our dude, so we're really in trouble now. So it's possible I shouldn't have sacrificed that land so quickly. Faithless Looting again, and we scoop it up because we're basically dead at this point. They have 4, 5, 6, 7 power in play. They can sack this at end of turn, get it back with the fetch land, so even if we had cast Anger of Gods, even in that mess, they still would have been left with a large carrion feeder, and since I sacrificed our land, we didn't have the ability to go and grab, go Anger of the Gods plus Bolt, which would probably end up being the correct line. It was the line I should have taken, and we would have had at least a chance to have beaten them. I was kind of counting on that thing in the Ice Living, which ends up dying to Lightning Axe. So, much like against Dredge, when they're bringing in Lightning Axes and stuff, you can't always count on your thing in the Ice Living. So maybe it was incorrect to use that Force of Negation on their bridge. Not their bridge, their Altar of Dementia, but, you know. That's the thing, is even their backup plan can, have a pretty solid beatdown plan. The league I've played with Bridgvine so far, I've played against Death and Taxes and Blue-White Control, and the games were really bizarre. So, I don't know what all it takes to beat the Hogaak deck on a consistent basis, but I've found ways, like my opponent leaning Arbitering into double Ghost Quartering me into not being able to cast spells, that kind of stuff. So, be having a Hogaak League coming out here probably in the next couple hours on replay, but definitely interesting to sometimes play decks that you'll never play on paper, just to have some idea of like the game actions of the deck, besides playing a bunch of matches against it. Sometimes I think playing a league or two or some matches with a deck is much more useful than trying to just understand from the other side from a conceptual concept. Sometimes that really helps to play a new deck, see how it plays out. I've personally come, even in the first couple games, that I don't like the play patterns of Hogaak Bridgvine. Even if it doesn't end up getting banned, it'll probably be a deck I will shy away from. But it's definitely a very powerful deck, as we've seen in these two sets of games against Izzet Phoenix. It can have a lot of turn 2 very powerful draws that are nigh unbeatable, even more so than Dredge does. So this deck is the real deal, and probably deserves maybe Bridge from the Below or Faithless Looting taking a Banhammer. Obviously, Faithless Looting wouldn't be great for the Phoenix decks, but sometimes some people have to sacrifice for the betterment of the format. But anywho, thoughts on this list? This list was pretty solid. Obviously, I'm still learning to pilot the deck, what hands are good, what hands are not. And the version we will play in the next set of videos is slightly different, but only by some semantic cards, mainly because I personally couldn't get a hold of any Ravenous Traps for the tournament that I was preparing for at this point in time. And I had not yet seen Tariq Patel's list, which was a little bit different than Gerry T's, and shuffling of some of the cards around. Like the third Aria Flame was on the board for Gerry and ended up being in the main for Tariq. The Magmatic Explosions were in the main deck, both of them, because both of them are very powerful against the blue Planeswalkers. They're also very powerful against things like Tarmogoyfs and such. A lot of really sweet gameplay here, a lot of fun. But, Hogaak is a thing, something that I prepare for, especially if they don't drop the Banhammer on it on Monday. So, as always, I want to thank everybody for tuning in. I apologize, this video will be getting out a little bit late, but I am a very big fan of Izzet Phoenix. I now own it in paper in addition to Burn, hence why it is the secondary deck on the channel. We'll also be doing some videos with Mono Red Phoenix various builds, and even probably the Mono Red Prowess deck that's been popping around that's very similar to Mono Red Phoenix. So we'll be doing some videos with that, but the main focus will continue to be Burn and also some Phoenix decks unless of course something like Faithless Looting gets banned, then we'll have to revisit what our tertiary deck is. But as always, I want to thank you for tuning in. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe down below. And until next time, this has been John from MTG Nexus. Everybody have a great day.